ඔෆිස් එකේදී විතරක් නෙවෙයි මම දැන් ගෙදරදීත් IDD calls ගන්න SLT ෆෝන් එකේ.
ඔබේ නිවසේ SLT දුරකථනය දැන් IDD පහසුකම සහිතයි.
Making headlines on First at 9. Brace for impact. Warnings of landslides and heavy rains across the country.
We expect thundershower for most parts of the island.
People are living in highly risky areas, and beside the rivers as well, they need to be paying a lot of attention.
Reserve boost. Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe hopeful of increasing foreign reserves to $11 billion by the end of this year. The central bank, however, is more optimistic and aims mid-June to hit the mark. Poverty elevation. Presidential Secretariat highlights the need for public and private sectors working together to eradicate poverty.
We only give money to the plan which is being prepared at the grassroots by the government agents with the support of the division secretary.
Becoming unpopular. The public inconvenienced and distraught over strike by government medical officers in protest of the FTA with Singapore.
Just because we sign a foreign agreement doesn't mean it becomes law in Sri Lanka. The parliament must enable it by enabling legislation.
Keeping faith, Sri Lanka Cricket decides to reappoint Graham the Boy as chairman of sectors. A very good evening and welcome to First at 9. I'm Katharina Chang. I want your top story tonight. As Sri Lanka aims to tread the path leading to economic growth and prosperity through trade liberalisation, the Sri Lanka-Singapore Free Trade Agreement has come under much scrutiny over past few days. The agreement has come under fire from certain quarters, with the Government Medical Officers Association launching a token strike today in protest of it, to the great inconvenience of the people. The move brought operations at outpatient departments at government hospitals to a standstill. Several other professional bodies also expressed their support to the GMOA and their stance on the matter. On the 23rd of January, Sri Lanka entered into a free trade agreement with Singapore, which was then ratified, officially coming into effect on the 1st of May. The SLS-FTA cover areas pertaining to trade in services, e-commerce, telecommunications, investments, intellectual property and government procurement. Trade unions and several professional bodies, however, are disdainful over the agreement, citing that it was entered into without a national trade policy. They also charge that the Economic and Technology Cooperation Agreement, also known as EDCA with India, was carried out in an arbitrary manner. It is in this backdrop the Government Medical Officers Association commenced an island-wide token strike at 8 this morning. As a result, day-to-day operations of outpatient departments at government hospitals came to a standstill, inconveniencing patients.
ස්ට්‍රයික් එක කියන්නේ මේ වෛද්‍යවරු කරන හරි මේ පහත් වැඩක් වැඳලා ඉල්ලනවා වෛද්‍යවරුන්ගේ මේ නින්දා වැඩේ කරන්න එපා.
ඒක දොස්තරලා ඒක ආණ්ඩුවත් එක්කනේ කතා කරන තියෙන්නේ. මහජනට කතා කරලා වැඩක් නැහැනේ.
වෛද්‍යවරුන්ගේ ප්‍රශ්නයක් නෙමෙයිනේ මේ ආණ්ඩුවේ වෙළඳ කිසුමේ ප්‍රශ්නයක්නේ. හරිම අසාධාරණයි.
අපි බේද ගන්න නේ මිනිසුත් කරන්නේ. සිංගප්පූරු දොස්තරලාගෙන් බේද ගන්න ඕනේ නැහැ නේ අපි.
The token strike will conclude at 8 in the morning tomorrow. Maternity hospitals, children's hospitals, cancer units, kidney units, ICU and army hospitals, however, were exempt from the strike. With the strike in full swing, the Government Medical Officers Association, along with several trade unions and professionals, charge that the government entered into the Sri Lanka-Singapore Free Trade Agreement without proper consultation with relevant stakeholders. The Sri Lanka Dental Association, National Ayurvedic Medical Association, Government Nurses Officers Association, All Ceylon Railway Employees General Union, Custom Officers Association and the Institution of Engineers have expressed their support for the token strike action launched by the Government Medical Officers Association.
When we announced that we were going to engage in a strike action last evening, The President extended an invitation to hold a meeting with us next Tuesday. The executive committee of the GMOA has decided to participate in that discussion.
Mr. Malik Samaravikrama and Mr. KJ Veerasinghe, the chief negotiator of the agreement, all the time saying that they have done the consultations with all the professional bodies, but they are specifying that they have done the consultation with ISL. This is the letter written by the ISL president to the president of the country. It clearly says, in whatever the discussion claim to have been made, we were not a party, and therefore views of engineers have not been expressed at the meetings to have been conducted by the Ministry of Development Strategies and International Trade. So that means the ISL president herself saying that they have not done the consultations with the apex body of engineering.
Meanwhile, national convener of the organisation, Rata Surakimu, Krishma Varnasurya, says that free trade agreements should be entered into in a way that both parties can benefit.
All these treaties, although they have gone and signed it overseas, must be enabled by our local legislation. We don't belong to a monolithic system of international law. Our dualist system is where even a head of state can't go and sign agreements and bind Sri Lanka, the republic. Why? Because the citizen holds a sovereign power. So our servant, the president, can't go and bind us if it's not favorable to us, the citizens. So that is why our legislature, our parliament, must then approve that what he or she had gone and signed, saying this is good for Sri Lanka. So just because we sign a foreign agreement doesn't mean it becomes law in Sri Lanka. The parliament must enable it by enabling legislation. But in any event, even our parliamentarians must now look, before they go into vote on this bill, if it actually comes, whether this is favorable to Sri Lanka first.
The Department of Meteorology says the Intertropical Convergence Zone, a prominent summer feature in both the northern as well as the southern hemisphere, is currently in the vicinity of Sri Lanka. Convening a special media briefing in Colombo today, the Met Department requested the public to remain vigilant over possible landslides due to heavy rains forecast across most regions of the island. Issuing a weather advisory, the Department of Meteorology says due to a low-level atmospheric disturbance in the vicinity of Sri Lanka associated with Intertropical Convergence Zone, cloudy and showery conditions are expected over most parts of the island. Speaking to First at 9, Director General of the Department of Meteorology, Sarath Premaral, said that heavy showers of 100 millimeters can be expected in several regions of the island over the next 24 hours.
Intertropical convergence zone, which is the convergence zone over the tropics due to winds come from northern hemisphere and southern hemisphere. It is in the vicinity of Sri Lanka nowadays. So because of that, so we expect cloudy skies over most part of the island, and we expect occasional showers over the western, Samaragambua, central and southern province. In addition, we expect thunder showers for most parts of the island after 2 o'clock. In addition, heavy falls about 100 millimeters also can be expected in some places.
Meanwhile, several roads in the Galle district was inundated owing to heavy showers experienced last night. Rough seas were witnessed along the coastal belt of Galle. A three-wheeler was left damaged when a tree toppled in Talwala, located along the Habarana-Dambulla main road last night. This was due to strong winds and heavy rain. Meanwhile, a landslide which occurred in Talawakale disrupted railway travel today. Water levels of the Castle Ray Reservoir were seen steadily rising due to heavy rains received in the area. Thereafter, steps were taken to open the spill gates of Kalawava and Dadroya tanks. Meanwhile, 150 families from Kanwaralla in Passara were severely inconvenienced owing to an earthslip which occurred in the area. Heavy rains were experienced in Colombo as well, disrupting day-to-day activities. Government authorities requested the public living close to mountains and rivers to be vigilant due to inclement weather conditions.
People now living in highly risky areas and beside the rivers as well, they need to be paying a lot of attention over the possibility of having landslides as well as increasing water levels. So especially people who are living beside the Attanagaloya, Kalani river, Kalu River, Gang River and Nilwara River. So people will be advised to be very vigilant with the prevailing conditions.
Meanwhile, Minister of Disaster Management, Duminda Disanayake, expressed the following views.
From the 21st of this month until the 2nd of June, the ministry has identified 10 districts that are most likely to be affected. We have taken steps to provide 1 million rupees to district secretaries in these areas to be used in an emergency.
President Maithripala Sirisena today expressed the government's readiness to intervene in protecting the Buddha Sasana. The head of state said the government is prepared to bring in to law a dialogue of the Sangha with their blessings in a bid to protect the discipline of the Buddha Sasana. The president made these remarks at a religious function held in Colombo today. President Maithripala Sirisena attended a function to ceremonially confer the position of Anunayaka of the Ramanya sect to Venerable Matale Sri Dhammakusalatera today.
There are endless accusations due to members of the Buddhist clergy who have gone astray. Although these cases are examined and Sangha Sabhas make decisions, they can't be enforced since they can either be accepted or not. Therefore, the general public ask what is the purpose of these titles in the Sangha Sabha. It is already late for a dialogue of Sangha. We presented necessary acts and proposals in Parliament, but we had to cease them owing to divergent views expressed from the Mahasangha, including various sects. We are ready to recommence that process as directed by you, even if it means to be berated.
Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe says that the country's gross foreign reserves, which are currently at $9 billion, will be increased to $11 billion by the end of the year. The Premier expressed his optimism over this while addressing a function held at Temple Trees today.
The national celebration of the International Nurses' Day was held at the Temple Trees today under the patronage of President Maithripala Sirisena and Prime Minister Ranil Wickremesinghe. Steps were taken to establish 3 new medical faculties after this government came to power at the universities of Wayamba, Sabaragamuwa and Moratuwa. We are in the process of developing the base hospital in Kuliyapitiya, Provincial General Hospital in Ratnapura and Panandura Base Hospital to facilitate these new medical faculties. The debt this year amounts to $2.5 billion. We paid all that and raised funds for these. Some thought this debt is not payable and this government would fail within 2 years. There is another global issue. Since the economy of the United States has strengthened, the value of the dollar increases and the value of other currencies depreciate. The governor of the central bank said there is nothing to panic and we can face this. A country which was bankrupt back then now has $9 billion and there will be $11 billion. They escaped without being able to govern the country and to manage the economy. We revived the economy.
However, expressing contradictory views to that of the Prime Minister, leader of the Pivituru Helurume, Udaya Gammanpila charges that the country's debt has increased to 78% of the GDP within 3 years under the incumbent government, saying that the country's debt was brought down to 72% of the GDP in 2014 under former President Rajapaksa. The parliamentarian demands that the government give an explanation to the public as to how it increased within 3 years. In the meantime, leader of the Lanka Samasamaja Party, Professor Tissavitharana, also points the finger at the government, alleging that the recent revision of the tax system is in fact done to appease the International Monetary Fund. These views were expressed across 2 separate media briefings today in Colombo.
The government always complained that the Rajapaksa administration caused a debt crisis in Sri Lanka. But in reality, this debt crisis was created not by the Rajapaksa government, but the present government itself. There is a globally accepted method to calculate the debt burden of any nation. That is calculation of the debt as a percentage of the GDP. Accordingly, when President Rajapaksa accepted the reign, debt burden was as high as 102%. He was able to bring it down to 72% in 2014. But present government has now increased to 78% without implementing any significant development project. Look at the size of the debt portfolio. In 2014, it was 7.4 trillion rupees. By end 2017, it has increased to 10.3 trillion. The government should explain to nation how government debt has increased so sharply within a short period of 3 years without implementing any significant development project.
Sri Lanka and its people are faced with a extremely dangerous and critical situation, both politically and economically. Rearrange the tax system. Now this tax system is based on conditions laid down by the IMF. The IMF and World Bank have given a low level of loans to the Sri Lankan government. The amount of interest is close to 6%. We have to fulfill their conditions. We have to open the door for foreign millionaires to come and exploit our country, to take ownership of our assets. We have to cut all our subsidies. Pensions have been cut. All that is being done. The welfare state is being dismantled as conditions of getting a small loan from the IMF. But we could have got at a lower interest rate those same loans from the Shanghai-based Asian Infrastructure Development Bank set up by the BRICS countries. There is a much lower interest rate and no conditions.
Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa calls on President Maithripala Sirisena to make necessary arrangements to commemorate war heroes during the Week of War Heroes. The former president spoke on the contentious subject during a religious function in Kaduwela today. Former President Mahinda Rajapaksa took part in a ceremony organised to unveil the newly constructed shrine room at the Mahungala temple in Kaduwela yesterday. Addressing the gathering, the former head of state touched on the matter of commemorating war heroes.
We have an obligation to light an oil lamp to commemorate fallen heroes. I think we must commemorate those who sacrificed their lives during the war. We commenced the construction work of the Ranaviru Pagoda in the name of war heroes. I request the President to complete this project. No need to think who initiated it or whose idea it is. You can declare it open. I also request the President and this government to stop the efforts of some to suppress the Week of War Heroes.
Central Committee of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party, which started at 8 p.m. today, is still underway at the President's official residence. Meanwhile, the group of 16 who left the government and defected to the opposition met members of the Sri Lanka Communist Party today.
The 16 members of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party who left the government, known as the Group of 16, met members of the Sri Lanka Communist Party, including its leader D.E.W. Gunasekara, this evening. We met the leadership of the Communist Party today. We will meet and discuss with all parties. We are discussing our political programs as well as how to proceed with an alternative political program in a new regime. We are also discussing how to create a new policy framework which can be agreed upon by all.
Secretary to the President, Austin Fernando, stresses the need of both public and private sectors working together to alleviate poverty. Addressing a media briefing in Colombo today, Fernando said that it is pivotal that the two sectors work hand in hand.
A media briefing was held today to speak on the current progress of the poverty alleviation program Grama Shakti, spearheaded by the Presidential Secretariat. The program aims to provide facilitation to people living in 5,000 Grama Niladhari divisions to fulfill basic needs by providing information, decision-making power and resources by 2020 and contributing to reach the National Sustainable Development Goal of eradicating extreme poverty as well as halving all forms of poverty by 2030. The program, which was launched in May last year, aims to address issues in 12 years.
We have selected 1,000 villages, out of which 700 are for the very poor people, 300 from other grades of people, and they will be given different approaches will be there for the two parties, and then they will be contributing to society economically after getting our assistance. And these cannot be done by our office. We have to get the support of other ministries other departments, other corporations, community organizations, NGOs. We have to get all the assistance from all banks. All these people will have to come along and work with us.
How are you all going to ensure the sustainability of these projects, that it will actually continue despite all the instability that is taking place?
We started this program with the 2017 poverty alleviation, that statement made by the President in January, on January 8th, 2017. We had the small projects being done there, but then we started in a much more methodical manner from last year. We only give money to the plan which is being prepared at the grassroots by the government agents with the support of the divisional secretaries. So there's divisional secretary level, there should be some monitoring. GS level, it should be happening, and at our level also we are aware of it, and we know where it is failing. Also, sometimes we question them. Why is it failing? Why is it not being completed? Because we get the information. There are certain places where it is happening slowly, where it is happening fast. And we have our own bureaucratic problems, own organizational problems, where some people work faster than the others.
Sri Lankan Airlines today issued an urgent notice requesting all passengers to arrive at the airport 3 hours prior to the departure time, effective from noon today until further notice. The national carrier said that this is to minimize delays that may arise due to work to rule trade union action carried out by the Sri Lanka Immigration and Immigration Officers Association. Depositors of crisis-ridden Edrisinghe Trust Investment Finance Limited staged a protest in Colombo today, demanding their deposits back. As the protesters gathered in front of the ETI Finance Limited building at Ward Place, the road was blocked for traffic during the protest.
Depositors of Edrisinghe Trust Investment Finance Limited engaged in a protest campaign today as well, demanding their deposits back. An official from the ETI arrived to speak with the depositors and assured to return a sum amounting to 10% of their deposits within this month. The depositors wanted the pledge in writing, and they continued the protest march towards the Borala town. Meanwhile, the company has also engaged in a discussion with several depositors. However, the depositors claim that the discussions ended with no proper solution.
The Ministry of Telecommunication and Digital Infrastructure yesterday signed a memorandum of understanding with Microsoft in Sri Lanka to provide effective citizen services. Speaking at the event, the subject minister, Harin Fernandes, said that this is a milestone for Sri Lanka to drive the country's digital transformation.
I'm quite happy that there are initiatives taken to bridge the divide, the digital divide. And what I'm quite ecstatic is to see what Microsoft is willing to do for Sri Lanka. Microsoft is a household name. It is available. They still want to stick into their own filing system of what they have and not go into the digital era of things. So this is where we need Microsoft support of how we change their mindsets, how do we change people's thinking. So I think it's important to have this best practices brought in, and there are various projects that we will have Microsoft support brought into the ministry on cybersecurity, guiding on procurement. Procurement is another issue, key issue that the government is facing, and only 200,000 students move on for advanced level. But this government took a bold initiative of making sure every student have 13 years of compulsory education. Again, I say this government has not marketed themselves well, but I think this is the best thing that any government have done. You give a student 13 years of compulsory education, there's a massive amount of money the government had to spend on students. We are being blamed for taxing. This taxing goes on for free education in Sri Lanka.
The Colombo Grand Mosque announced that the Islamic community in Sri Lanka will begin their month-long Ramadan fasting period from tomorrow. The month of Ramadan traditionally begins with the sighting of a new moon, denoting the start of the 9th month in the Islamic calendar.
You are watching
Sri Lanka's award-winning news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Welcome back to the news. The central bank says that it is determined to curb unwarranted depreciation of the rupee since the underlying fundamentals do not warrant the current pressure on the currency. Releasing a communique, the central bank says that gross external reserves are presently at $9.1 billion and the real effective exchange rate indices indicate that the currency is competitive and stress that the pressure on the currency is therefore unwarranted. The central bank indicated that gross external reserves is expected to increase to a record close of $11 billion by mid-June this year. The increase of reserves will be due to the tranche of the IMF Extended Fund Facility expected next month and the final payment on the long lease of the Hambantota port amounting to $585 million. Furthermore, Sri Lanka is to receive $1 billion proceeds of a syndicated term loan due in mid-June this year. The central bank added that the CBSL has the option of using a part of its external reserves to trigger material appreciation of the rupee to prevent unwarranted depreciation of the currency, particularly as it is not justified by the underlying fundamentals. The All-Share Price Index ended 0.16% weaker at 6,473.18 today, slipping from its highest close since 9th of May hit yesterday. The turnover stood at 484.6 million rupees, less than half of this year's daily average of 1 billion rupees. Let's cross over to Imesh Fernando from the Colombo Stock Exchange for a detailed report.
The market capitalization at the end of the day was 3,023.32 billion rupees. Today's foreign purchases were 206.21 million rupees and foreign sales were 283.98 million rupees. There were 2 crossings today and the crossing turnover was 148.85 million rupees.
Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
China and France yesterday agreed on the need to maintain the Iran nuclear deal. Speaking at a joint news conference, French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian and his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi said that as permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, both nations are tasked to limit nuclear proliferation to promote peace and stability. With the President of the United States, Donald Trump, deciding to pull out of the Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, commonly known as the Iran nuclear deal, the future of it was very much thrown into doubt. The other signatories of the deal, China, France, Russia, United Kingdom, Germany and the European Union, however, stress that the deal should not die. 2 from that group, China and France, yesterday agreed on the need to maintain the Iran nuclear deal. Speaking at a joint news conference, French Foreign Minister Jean-Yves Le Drian and his Chinese counterpart Wang Yi said that as permanent members of the United Nations Security Council, both nations are tasked to limit nuclear proliferation to promote peace and stability. Le Drian also singled out North Korea's ballistic missile and nuclear programs, saying the country poses a threat to Asian and European security. Wang took a swipe at the United States trade policy and defended international free trade on the basis of World Trade Organization regulations, saying trade unilateralism goes against the current of history. The Blue House said today that South Korea intends to continue discussions with North Korea to hold the high-level talks Pyongyang cancelled. It also said it would work as a coordinator between North Korea and the United States so that the two countries can hold a successful summit in Singapore. Talks between the two Koreas were scheduled for yesterday, but the North suspended it, citing the South's joint military drills with the United States. South Korea expressed its willingness today to discuss and revive high-level talks with their northern counterparts and volunteered to be the coordinator between the North and the US so the leaders of the two countries can have a successful summit in Singapore. The statement comes after Pyongyang yesterday threatened to pull out of the June 12 summit in Singapore with US President Donald Trump, saying it might not attend if Washington continues to demand it unilaterally abandon its nuclear arsenal. President Donald Trump and South Korean President Moon Jae-in will have a summit at the White House next Tuesday, with the upcoming summit between Trump and North Korea leader Kim Jong-un set to be on the agenda. North Korea called off talks with South Korea scheduled for yesterday, blaming US-South Korean military exercises. Sri Lanka Cricket has decided to reappoint Graham Labroy as the chairman of the Sri Lanka Cricket Selection Committee. It, however, said that other members who will be appointed to the selection panel will be announced later. And on to some tennis news now. Kei Nishikori rediscovered some of his best form as he beat Grigor Dimitrov in Rome yesterday to book a place in the last 16 of the Italian Open. It was also a good day for seven-time Rome champion Rafael Nadal and former world number 1 Novak Djokovic as they too progressed to the last 16. The day also produced the shock of the tournament so far. Kei Nishikori was on fine form at the Italian Open in Rome yesterday as he beat Grigor Dimitrov to book a place in the last 16. The Japanese came from a set down to beat the much-fancied Dimitrov 6-7, 7-5, 6-4 on the Bulgarian's 27th birthday. World number 24, Nishikori will face Germany's Philipp Kohlschreiber next. In the meantime, Rafael Nadal, 7-time winner in Rome, made short work of Bosnian Damir Dzumhur with a crushing 6-1, 6-0 win. He will take on Canada's Denis Shapovalov in the next round. It was also a straightforward afternoon for Novak Djokovic in front of an adoring Italian crowd as the 11th seed saw off Gregorian qualifier Nicolas Basilashvili 6-4, 6-2 to set up a clash with Spain's Albert Ramos Vinolas. The day, however, belonged to home favourite Fabio Fognini as he produced the shock of the tournament, beating 6th seed Dominic Thiem 6-4, 1-6, 6-3. Thiem, who reached the Madrid Open finals last week, had only conceded 8 games to Fognini in their previous 2 meetings. Fognini, who beat Gael Monfils in round 1, will play unseeded German Peter Gojocic in the last 16.
You are watching Sri Lanka's #1 news channel, Other Derana 24/7.
Taking a look at the weather forecast tomorrow, cloudy and showery conditions are expected over most parts of the island due to a low-level atmospheric disturbance in the vicinity of Sri Lanka associated with the tropical convergence zone. Western, southern and Sabragamu provinces are likely to experience showers or thunder showers. With that, let's take a look at your city-by-city forecast. That's it from Other Derana First at 9 for tonight. But before we go, we'd like to take you to Hidikatia Bay Beach in down south and the biodiversity around it. This newly found beach is a favourite for local and foreign beach lovers. We hope you enjoy these visuals and have a pleasant evening.
Bringing you the news and information 24 hours a day. This is Sri Lanka's premier news channel, Other Derana 24/7.